We're getting close to the end of Season 11, and with that, Destiny 2 Year 3. And I wanted to make a video somewhat discussing and or explaining the current quote-unquote most popular hand cannons we have, and even recognize a few honorable mentions that maybe don't quite fit into this video perfectly. It's not like understanding weapon archetypes is necessarily an arcane concept, but I feel like there are some misconceptions and even some complete misunderstandings as to why some hand cannons are used or preferred by a lot of players, and why some just aren't used or are very, very rarely seen. And of course there are, reasons why some are better than others in some situations, but might be worse than others, and why are some even viewed as legendary alternatives to exotic hand cannons. So, that's something. I want to start off by bringing up that fancy word of archetype that I mentioned a moment ago. A weapon's archetype refers to its frame or its intrinsic perk, which almost always goes in tandem with the weapon's rate of fire, or RPM. You will notice that most content creators, or even people in general, refer to weapons archetype as its rate of fire. For example, like 140 hand cannons such as Old Fashioned, 340 pulses like Redrix's Claymore, 600 autos like Gnawing Hunger, 260 sidearms like Lonesome. That's just a few examples, really. And since this video is going to be about hand cannons, I'm going to talk about those for a bit. There's 4 archetypes of hand cannons: aggressive frame, which is 110 RPM, adaptive frame, which is 140 RPM, lightweight frame, which is 150 RPM, and precision frame, which is 180 RPM. There is a couple special cases in this, but as far as anything, they're typically the same thing aside from Warden's Wall, which is like this freak of nature hand cannon, and I'm not even going to talk about it. So in any case, in this video I'm going to be focusing more on the 2 archetypes which are more similar to each other, being adaptive and lightweight, which is 140 and 150s. Adaptive frame hand cannons have either an invisible benefit or just flat out no benefit at all to weapon or player's functionality. And in regards to hand cannons, all of them exclusively fire at 140 rounds per minute. They hit for 70 damage on a critical hit and 47 damage to a body or anywhere else. And they take 3 crits to kill under all normal circumstances and all resilience values. How fun. This leaves them with an optimal time to kill of 0.87 or 870 milliseconds. This is rounded up from like 0.8696, something like that. I just wanted to point that out. And then we have lightweight frame hand cannons. Lightweight frame hand cannons have a direct player benefit where if they are the currently active weapon, you actually gain additional mobility and movement speed. All lightweight frame hand cannons fire exclusively at 150 RPM, although not all 150 RPM hand cannons are a lightweight frame. Not forgotten is a precision frame, which fires at 150 RPM, for example, due to a nerf that it received at some point, which nerfed its rounds per minute from 180 and made the guns. Anyway, lightweight frame hand cannons hit for 68 damage on a crit and 43 elsewise. They share the same shots to kill and critical hit ratio for optimal TTK, albeit they're 70 milliseconds faster, leaving them at a time to kill of 0.8 seconds, or 800 milliseconds. And so you can immediately see a weird issue here with the 2 hand cannon archetypes. With the scientist data out of the way, I want to bring up an argument point. Why would anyone use a 140 over 150? And my short answer for this is there's different perk roll accessibility, different feel to the weapons, and different character behind the weapons. For example, I could use Austringer instead of Dire Promise for a hand cannon that receives, this is seemingly unproven, a lot less bloom per shot, and seemingly again unproven, less recoil for or with a very similar, very utility heavy perk pool. I will mention though, in a vacuum you'll likely or almost certainly never take a 140 over a 150 if you're speccing in for maximum success chance and the easiest way to win, so keep that in mind. So I've pretty much exhausted exactly what I want to say in regards to all this data stuff, so I'm going to go into the actual weapons themselves and the real meat of the video here. Let's take a look at the big 4 quote-unquote hand cannons right now, on PC at least. I don't really care about console because I don't play it, but I feel like it's probably still relative, so check this out. Moving back on the main topic of the big 4 hand cannons. For adaptive frames, we have Austringer and the Old Fashioned, and for lightweight frames, we have Spare Rations and Dire Promise. 2 of these drop from a very specific source, 2 others are in the general world drop pool. 2 of these are spec'd very heavily towards lethalities, and 2 others are spec'd very heavily towards utility. 2 of these have unique models, and 2 are pretty much cut and paste models, with one having a tacky sticker on the cylinder. Ostringer is the first of these I'm going to be talking about, being released with the Menagerie in Year 2, Season 7, Season of Opulence. This is a 140 RPM adaptive frame hand cannon that features mostly utility perks but has a single lethality perk mixed in slot 2. Ostringer perk-wise can roll with in slot 1, Outlaw, Subsistence, Triple Tap, Eye of the Storm, Air Assault, and Snapshot. And in slot 2, you can get Rangefinder, Demolitionist, Rampage, Opening Shot, Underdog, and Zen Moment. As we can see, this hand cannon is very heavily stacked in the utility department, and this gun seemingly benefits from this, featuring very notable base range and aim assistance for its weapon class. You commonly see players in PvP using an Ostringer roll with Eye of the Storm and either Rangefinder or Opening Shot. In my personal experience, I'm a huge fan of this hand cannon, having nearly 10,000 kills on one single roll of it alone, and I can speak subjectively on behalf of the weapon, saying it's definitely a contender for the best non-exotic 140 RPM hand cannon in the game. Dire Promise is the next of these four that I'm going to talk about. Dire Promise is what I would consider to be the 150 RPM mirror of Ostringer, being weighted much more heavily on utility perks instead of lethality, although much like the Ostringer, it does have access to a single lethality perk. Dire Promise can roll with in slot 1 Overflow, Triple Tap, Auto-Loading Holster, Opening Shot, and Snapshot, and in slot 2 Swashbuckler, Elemental Capacitor, Osmosis, Rangefinder, and Under Pressure. Typically, you see almost everyone trying to spec this out for maximum range because this is objectively a very good PvP weapon due to its high base range and aim assist. Secondly, utility weapons tend to perform better in quote-unquote higher-end PvP, due to the fact that most good players aren't willing to let someone go on a kill clip or rampage spree, at least without trading out the kill, therefore making your weapon have the highest possible range, aim assistance, and accuracy is just inherently the best available option in 99% of scenarios. This is because in most cases, a damage boosting perk doesn't actually lower the shots to kill on a hand cannon. Moving on to the old fashioned, this hand cannon is a 140 RPM sharing an identical model with Dire Promise, although without that really tacky dead orbit sticker on it, and no skull etched into the frame of the gun. Regardless of visuals, the old fashioned is a notorious hand cannon for me, because it's the only hand cannon where I very heavily used until Forsaken Season 4, where I started using Ace of Spades, and more importantly, not forgotten, more actively. If I had to summarize the old fashioned, I would probably say it's a legendary version of Ace of Spades, which can take a mod slot. The random roll variant of this gun, introduced in Season 9, Season of Dawn, is fairly heavily weighted towards more lethality perks. The old fashioned can roll with, in slot 1, Slide Shot, Demolitionist, Feeding Frenzy, Firmly Planted, Quick Draw, or Pulse Monitor, and in slot 2 can get Kill Clip, Snapshot, Explosive Payload, Surrounded, Moving Target, and Hipfire Grip. Taking note of these rules, we can definitely see this one is geared a lot more towards lethality, and serves as a good example as to why I compare it to Ace of Spades, actually. And finally, we'll bring up the old reigning champion, Spare Rations. Spare Rations had a very nice stint of time in the limelight, starting in Season 6, Season of the Drifter. Spare Rations, much like the relationship of Ostringer to Dire Promise, is much like the mirror of the old fashioned as a 150 RPM. I really feel like this weapon needs zero introduction, but I'm gonna mention that this is by far the hardest of the four hand cannons to farm efficiently or even effectively, requiring players to go through at least tier 2 of the Reckoning on a specific week to fight a specific boss, the Oryx boss, and even then it's locked behind a very steep RNG wall. The hardest part of this grind is not falling asleep while on the Bridge of Folly, which is an abominable sequence in the Reckoning, which is about 5 to 6 minutes of, I kid you not, killing Taken Thrall while spamming Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn. It's bad. Really bad. Spare Rations can roll with, in slot 1, Rapid Hit, 4th time's a charm, Snapshot, Subsistence, Threat Detector, Field Prep, and Auto-Loading Holster. And in slot 2, Kill Clip, Rampage, Multi-Kill Clip, Slide Shot, Rangefinder, Moving Target, Swashbuckler, and Hipfire Grip. In my opinion, this is probably the best single non-exotic pubstar hand cannon to roll into quick play with. The problem is when farming this gun, there's so many bad perks or just poor perks in its potential pool. It's very easy to be one perk off of a very nice roll multiple times in a row. That's part of the reason why it's such a notorious hand cannon, and someone who has a very nice roll either soccer mommed it or is a very patient person. Pretty sure I soccered my roll since I don't remember doing more than 5 or 6 reckonings, but anyway, most people either want a max range or stability and lethality on this one. I want to believe if Dire Promise didn't have such a small perk pool, and it was that the fact that it was so easy to farm, Spare Rations would still be the more commonplace hand cannon. With that all aside, I want to bring up some of my rules on these guns and explain my mentality or build idea behind them. Starting with my Austrian roll, I have extended barrel, which isn't really what I would prefer, but it's one of the 3 good barrels you can get on it, behind full bore and hammer forged, for range. I have accurized in the magazine slot because this is the best range ammo perk you can get on this hand cannon. And I use snapshot because I'm weird and I think it feels nice, and opening shot because it's literally a free precision hit. I mean, not literally, but it adds a nice chunk of range and aim assistance on the first shot. I also have a range masterwork. Moving on to my roll in the old fashioned, I use virtually the same thing as I did in Season 1, except for I haven't gotten my greatest roll yet, so it's just hit mark, alloy mag, quick draw, and kill clip with a range masterwork. I care a lot more about the quick draw and kill clip than the sights or the mag, since I mostly play quick play anyways. I don't really use a Dire Promise, but I would probably be using the textbook 5 out of 5 range roll with hit mark, sure shot, ricochet rounds, opening shot, and rangefinder. Here's actually a clip, or like it's a picture, of a friend and clanmate of Riot, its Twitch link will be in the description, who ironically got this nearly perfect dire roll when I was working in the stream while actually writing the script of this video. Pretty coincidental. And my Spare Rations roll was dug up out of a pile of dust in the bottom of my vault. Honestly, I probably got it on a random drop in Gambit Prime and never looked at it. Full bore, appended mag, rapid, and a Rampage with a ranged masterwork as my roll, and I'm pretty pleased with this one. I definitely go on some tears when I gotta pull this thing out. Now I'm gonna go into some honorable mentions here. The first one is gonna be Not Forgotten. Not Forgotten's a precision frame 150 in the energy slot. This means it maintains the standard functionality like the inner accuracy, low bloom rate, and low recoil of precision frame hand cannons whilst firing at 150 RPM. It's a reward from completing the Luna's Howl quest, then the quest step after it in getting to the legend rank and the survival playlist. It's Luna's Howl with a more natural recoil pattern and a lot more range. Like a lot. Get it. The second and final honorable mention I want to make is Waking Vigil. Waking Vigil is an energy 150 RPM lightweight hand cannon and can be also farmed from the menagerie and is quite a nice thing to experiment with, especially if you're running kinetic special weapons like Bite of the Fox and Astral Horizon. Waking Vigil is almost entirely weighted on utility perks with the following perks. In slot 1 you can get Opening Shot, Triple Tap, Zen Moment, Grave Robber, and Hipfire Grip. And in slot 2 you can get Outlaw, Dragonfly, Slide Shot, Auto Loading Holster, and Snapshot. Ideally you probably want to have something like Opening Shot and Slide Shot, but as usual the perk makeup is entirely up to the player. My personal role has Opening Shot and Snapshot. And this one, I know I said that the last hand cannon was the last honorable mention, but while I was editing this, it kind of slipped my mind all the way until now. The last honorable mention, which is real honorable mention number 3, is Rose. Rose is a 150 RPM kinetic hand cannon that you acquire by doing the Lumina quest line and then a bunch of sub-quests within that quest line to upgrade it and give it some perks. Rose is actually a static roll gun, meaning that there's no random rolls for it. And that being said, the perks that you can get on Rose is Chambered Compensator, Accurized Rounds, Outlaw, and Polymer Grip. I think I've said what I needed to say, and quite frankly, I'm probably actually wasting both my time and your time by making this video, but I figured it'd be nice to get these final words out there before Season 12 starts and Year 4 Destiny 2 begins, as well as serving an archival purpose. Please understand this isn't necessarily meant to be exhaustive, but rather a perspective look on the current top meta of hand cannons. Hopefully, if you are somewhat lost or curious in general, what I've explained here has done some bit of a service, or at the very least taught or given you some insight into the current state of the hand cannon meta, I guess. At least the more prevalent ones. I have no doubt in the next year things will change a lot regarding game balance and what the big popular guns are, but until then this video should remain fairly on point up to some degree. I want to make a final note saying, yeah, some of the guns listed here are marked for sunsetting, but it may still be worth going out and farming them for use in quick play or private matches or just because they look cool, I guess. In any case, I hope you all enjoyed this or found this helpful, and see you all next time. Gimmicky outro here. Later, dudes.